Anna Parvas. I work at Curio, and I'm the head of growth there. So I look after, product marketing and a lot of data. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or send me a message at any point. So that's my contact details. So Curio is a spoken audio app. We partner with publications, journalists, and podcasters. And with the publications and journalists, we basically curate their written content and then pair it with professional voice actors so you can listen to the content like an audiobook, but for kind of long form journalism. So Curio is free to download. So once you download it, you can listen to some stories, but we kind of hide features behind a paywall. And if you want to take advantage of all the features, then you can subscribe. So we have either a monthly or an annual plan. And yeah, so similar to SignEasy, we're present in all of the storefronts available on Apple and Google. We developed our app with both Apple and Google in mind, so it's native on both platforms. And yeah, so I've been working kind of in marketing. My background is in music, and then I kind of got into tech and apps about 6 or 7 years ago, which is when I started doing Facebook ads. So I've spent a lot of time doing the Facebook ads, and last year, as well as the paid user acquisition campaign, I actually humblingly won App Marketer of the Year, which was amazing. So in the last 6 or 7 years, I've spent over £1 million on Facebook and Instagram, of course, advertised in more than 50 countries and scaled products in more than 50 countries and run more than 15,000 ads. So this is just some of the examples of the ones that we've run on Curio on the right-hand side there. So, okay. So we'll get into how to run a successful ad. So the main 3 things that we need to focus on is your product, your users, and then experimenting. So with product, it's really important that the very first thing that you do is understanding your app. So when I joined Curio, I spent a really long time kind of learning the app inside and outside, backwards and forwards. Like if you asked me to tell you how to get to any screen in our app, I'd be able to tell you immediately. You need to kind of use the product yourself and make sure that the way that you're using it is going to be similar to your users and like that, and with that frequency cycle, so that you really understand and can tap into their mindsets. Then also, most importantly, for your ads, that you need to get your tracking in place. So once you know that you're going to start running your ads, you need to be able to quantify your success there. So for example, all of our ads are run on event optimization. So it's a subscription app. So we have purchase as our conversion, which is the beginning of your 7-day free trial. So if you don't have your tracking in place, your campaign isn't going to be able to optimize, and you're going to lose all of your learnings. So you're not going to be able to know which creatives are passing users through and making them sign up and converting to purchase and then converting to payment. So getting your tracking in place is so important, and it's very important to work very closely with your developers throughout that time. And for each platform as well, you'll need to set up tracking individually. So for Facebook, for Google, for Snapchat, for example, if you're using a mobile measurement platform like AppFollow or Just, they can integrate through there. So with your mobile measurement platform, you will basically with your mobile measurement platform, you will spec out all of the events into there as well. So if you have a kind of event map, if they're built into your MMP, then once you've integrated that with different partners like Snapchat, or if you are working with any like third-party ad partners with their own ad networks, you can integrate those with your MMP and pass those events back automatically, so you don't have to add in any further SDKs to make your app heavier. And then I'll just answer these quickly. Did my team help me with tracking implementation, and how long did that take? So yes, I mean, I'm not a developer, so I wouldn't be able to kind of implement that myself. So how we did the tracking implementation basically was that I spent a long time looking at the app and speaking to our users and understanding the best flow for the users. And then I created a product event tracking map and a people profile tracking map. So what we did is into all of our different kind of tracking softwares. So like Facebook, for example, Google, Firebase, AppFollow, and then we use Mixpanel. We have put in like different levels of specificity of tracking. So for Facebook, for example, we don't have quite as in-depth tracking spec as from Mixpanel, but we would have in like all of our core actions that we know we're going to optimize on and define success based on. So how long did the tracking implementation take? I mean, it's an ongoing process because Facebook will continuously be updating their SDKs and so all the other platforms, but the initial kind of putting it in the first place, it shouldn't take too long. You know, it's just adding in an extra line of code onto each event that's happening and making sure that these things are being passed back in the right way. So with Facebook, for example, there are app events and then there are ad app events. So you need to make sure that both of these things. Did I cut out there? There are app events. Did it cut out there?
Yeah, you're online now, so we lost you.
Weird. Yeah, I was like, oh, I've gone. Yeah, so there are app events, which are things that are just passed back through the kind of Facebook analytics platform, like interface, and then there are ad app events, which are the ones that are going to connect your ads themselves to the events, and then that you're going to be able to optimize based on. So yeah, you need to do both of these, and yeah, shouldn't take too long. And then, do we use any ad management platform? We don't use an ad management platform, which is kind of doing all of the learnings for us. We're still a small team. So yeah, we do all of the ads ourselves in-house, but then we use AppFollow as our mobile measurement partner. So through AppFollow, we can see like if someone's coming from Facebook, for example, or if someone's coming from like an organic attributed channel, then we can see how these people are converting later on, and we'll be able to kind of click into those and see which campaigns are working the best, which ones are having different cancellation rates or conversion rates or play rates. You know, it's an audio app, so we're constantly looking at people who are apps flyer. I'll write that in for you there. Yeah, there are a bunch of different platforms that are doing similar things. There's also Adjust, which is another great platform. I've been using AppFollow for about 5 years, so I'm just very familiar with it. So that's why we've been using that one. There's like Kachava as well that I've heard of, but also not used. Any more questions on this? Tenjin says hi. I've not heard of that one. Yeah, so again, so important to get all of this stuff done. Okay. So then when the next thing is your users. So of course your users are the people who've installed, signed up, taken out a subscription, converted to paid. So there are all of these steps of the funnel of people that you need to really look into and speak to. So at any time at Curio, we're constantly talking to new people and talking to our users and making sure that we have like a well-rounded view of kind of their motivators and barriers. So for example, we've spoken to people who are kind of our most hard active users, and we have found out that their jobs to be done are kind of understanding the world better. It's a journalism app, so people are coming into Curio and wanting to not just listen to something. It's not just about listening, but it's about having context for things that are happening around the world, or having another big thing for them is to have better conversations. So they want to be able to connect more with people, and when they're having dinner with people, understand what they're talking about and be able to relate to what they're saying and have their own input and have their own opinions formed. So that's a huge element of the things that you can get from speaking to your users. In fact, I was speaking to someone just the other day, and she was saying that she's struggling with like creating new ads, and they've spent some money kind of getting all of this B-roll footage filmed for a fitness app, And I was like, okay, but why are the people who are using your app using it now? And she hadn't spoken to any of her users ever. She was like, after a year and a half, she was planning on sending out her first survey to users. And it is the most important thing that you can do, is just continuously speaking to the people using your app, because really they're the ones that are your most valuable players. So they're the ones that are going to be your biggest advocates, and they're the ones that are going to keep on coming back. Especially with a subscription app, you need them to keep coming back because it increases your lifetime value. So motivators and barriers, really just asking people why, if they've installed, and obviously you've had some kind of very compelling marketing, and then they've installed, and then they've signed up, but perhaps they haven't taken out a subscription, or perhaps they've not done like one of your core actions, which could be like adding a friend or listening to a story or playing a game. Like why didn't they do that? And how can you push them to do that more? And how can app events and ad app events, I'll get to that after, but how can we frame our messaging in a way to educate people from as early and high as far up the funnel as possible, to put them in the right frame of mind for when they come into the product? And how can we increase the comprehension from as early as possible? So a very important thing that we did as well when I joined Curio was our app store listing was, the app was already there and we had an app store listing. And when I looked at it, I personally didn't even understand what it meant. Like I didn't understand what the message it was trying to get across was. So I took my phone out and I literally showed people on the street and asked them, what do you think this app does? Like, can you tell me what you think this app does? What does this screen mean? Like, what is this message that's conveying to you? And what I found was that we had about 2 out of 10 comprehension. So what I did was just made a form and filled in like what their answers were. And yeah, we had about 2 out of 10. So after that, came back and then just iterated those screens, had them just as a kind of PDF saved into my phone, and went and did the same thing, and then kept iterating based on what they were saying, and until we got to 9 out of 10 comprehension. So at first people were saying that they thought it was perhaps an app for planning events, or one person even said they thought it might be an app to increase the brightness of your phone because it said something about illuminating in the initial copy. But and then what we ended up changing it to was listen to the best journalism. We've changed like all of our messaging to be as clear as possible so that people have the right frame of mind when they're coming in. And then I'll quickly answer Bilal. So is there a difference between app events and ad app events? So app events are in Facebook mapped, and they're just kind of in the analytics platform. So they are kind of not the ad manager conversion tracking. So if you go to like the Facebook analytics platform, you'll be able to see all of these events. Some of them are put in automatically. And then your ad app events are the ones that you're going to be able to optimize based on. So if you're doing kind of app install campaign, which is optimized towards an app event, then you're going to have like purchase, complete registration, and these kinds of things. These are all predetermined names. So you're going to have to map like your events onto these predetermined names. So yeah, that's the kind of the difference. Have I done HTML5 ads in Facebook? I haven't done them in Facebook, but I've done a lot of them in Google, and it's, yeah, they're good. Obviously it's interactive. So anything that is interactive for users is key. Like what ads need to be is like engaging, and like a big thing that we've been working on since the beginning of 2020 has been creating more engaging ads that like we've seen have had like hundreds and hundreds of organic shares within the first like week. And that has allowed us to then increase the number of likes, which has driven down the cost per purchase, which has driven down our CAC, just because we're creating ads that are kind of authentic and relatable. Okay. And then experimenting. So obviously you're going to be working with your designers to create these images and videos and creatives in general. So working directly with your designers is so important that I actually have been sat next to my designer for like the best part of the last year. We weren't together at first, but it was so important that we're constantly working together. So you really just need to know exactly what each other are thinking at all the times. And if you have any feedback and your learnings from the ads, like these need to be communicated. You know, have your designers come and sit in on user interviews with you so they really understand what messages have to be made to acquire these users and which messages have to be made to translate into the product to help these people along their funnel. So yeah, okay, I'll get to that in a second. But yes, our designer, I work with our designer, so she works across like the whole funnel. So basically from kind of click to install, which will be the ads, to right down to everything. So she's worked directly on every single thing that's been in the app, and that means she has kind of a holistic view of how everything's fitting together, and that means that our ads will be able to communicate well, like all of the messaging throughout. So working directly with your designers and kind of iterating with them is so important. And designers should really be data led too. So my designer, for example, is constantly asking me for learnings from the ads, what's working, what's not working, so she can learn too, and so she can do everything better. So ad placements, ad formats, and size works best for you. Image, video, carousel, story feed, Instagram. So with these, it is different for every product. For me, when I'm doing image only ads, I prefer to do horizontal ads because there are more places that these ads can go. Squares have always worked better for videos for me. If I do a horizontal video, then it's always had that poor interaction, poor engagement. So I've kind of cut those out completely. But then image, video, carousels are great too. But placements, I always try and do as many placements as possible. And this is because, for example, if I'm deciding that I'm only going to target Instagram stories, then I'm automatically cutting out a huge amount of my audience. Whereas if I'm adding an Instagram story sizing into a dynamic campaign, like a dynamic creative campaign, then that can be added in there when it needs to be added in. Squares can be added in when they need to be added in, and it will optimize itself to deliver the best performing creatives in the best performing places. So I'll skip this split test and go back to that in a second, but dynamic ads. So within Facebook, you can, in the ad set level, you can select whether you want to have kind of singular creatives or if you want to have dynamic ads. So within that, you're able to select multiple images, multiple lines of copy, multiple calls to action, multiple headlines, and input all of these. And then what this does is gives Facebook as many touch points and data points as it can as possible, which means it's going to learn as much as possible and deliver most effectively. So Facebook and Instagram work best whenever you're not putting too many limitations on it. So I always put in as many things as I can. So like 10 images, 5 lines of copy, 5 body copies, 5 call to actions, 5 headlines. And then what Facebook will do is just run them against each other, see which ones are getting the most kind of interaction and engagement, the highest click-through rates, and then it will start placing these together to kind of create the best creatives. And in that way, kind of we've driven down our CAC by, you know, yeah, like 90%. So what is our sources of inspiration for new ads? And do we do customer development? So our source of inspiration for new ads is completely by speaking to our users. So we've done, with my designer and head of brand, we spent a lot of time kind of doing motivators and barriers workshops. So working out what are the things that would prevent someone from using Curio? What are the things that would encourage someone to use Curio? So these might be something about money because it's a subscription app, or it might be that they're not understanding what the product is, or the motivators might be around that they know that they find out that they can have these better conversations, or that they get to spend more time off their phone or learning about the world around them. So it's really taking those ideas and leveraging them, taking ideas and leveraging them in a way that is going to, you know, connect to people. So this is why this become the most interesting person in the room line of copy worked, because it appealed to kind of the social job to be done, which was connecting to people. Like the word interesting, we tried so many other words there. We tried, you know, smartest, we tried like we tried interested as well, because we had a lot of people responding to the interesting, saying that it's not important to be interesting, it's important to be interested. But so we tried interested, but it didn't perform as well. So although it might be kind of a little narcissistic perhaps to want to be the most interesting person in the room, this isn't something that people are admitting publicly. It's something that they're admitting to themselves, and it appeals to their kind of deep down nature that they want to be better. So it's important to kind of have these like motivators in mind whenever you're creating copy. Where can you find people like me? I don't know, on LinkedIn. My company found me on LinkedIn. What is your creative testing strategy? How many creatives should we test in soft launch? You seem to use too many variations of text. I heard too many creatives can increase CPI. So too many creatives can increase CPI if I found that if I'm doing ads which are individual ads and I have too many different individual ads, then that would increase my CPI because the learnings aren't fast enough. But as long as I have a high enough budget to get the right amount of learnings in the 7-day period, then, and I'm using a dynamic campaign, then I haven't had any negative effects on the CPI. And in fact, I don't mind having a high CPI if I'm having a high conversion rate. So for example, if I can spend, let's say my goal is to spend £10 for a converted user. I don't mind if I spend £10 on an install if I'm not having 100% converted users. Like I'd rather spend that and have super high conversion rates than having super low conversion rates for a 50p install. I'm not having, no one has 100% conversion rates. But yeah, it's important to experiment as much as possible, because without that, you're not going to learn. And the more you can learn, the lower you can get your CPI down. And in the short term, it's worth having slightly higher CPI if you can drive that down permanently. For example, the Become the Most Interesting Person in the Room campaign, we spent months kind of testing and iterating on that with an elevated CPI. And then we resulted in a campaign that got over 250,000 installs at the lowest CPIs we've ever seen for over a year without saturating, and it was working worldwide. Creative testing strategy. So we use split tests. So basically, we'll take a couple of different themes. So maybe it's around having better conversations, or it's around becoming more interesting, or we do something that's product led. And then we'll put them into a split test campaign. So it directly splits an audience into 3 parts, or however many parts you want. And it would be, this one, for example, would be a creative split test. And once you're doing that, you'll be able to kind of measure directly the impact of this messaging on the audience that you're trying to target. And then after we have those learnings, we'll take it away and iterate on that specific creative and into maybe 10 different things, and then put them into a dynamic ad, so that then you're going to quickly get your learnings on those iterations. Do we use mostly user acquisition or remarketing? I do a bunch of both, mostly user acquisition at the moment. We're still a new company, so I'm starting to flirt into the remarketing, and it's been super successful, but that is another ballgame. So mostly user acquisition and making sure that these are optimized for success. Is typing. If anyone has any more questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Can I share what percentage of the budget that goes there? That varies depending on the time of year. So it's not kind of a fixed amount. So obviously you're going to have some times that are lower and higher for acquisition, and sometimes that are better for brand building, and sometimes that are better for all these different things. So, I mean, it varies between 5% and 30%, you know. Do we show suppression lists to avoid showing ads to people who have already installed your app? So within your ad set level, I mean, well, first of all, if you're creating an app install campaign, it wouldn't show to anyone that has already installed the app anyway, because you can't have success with an app install campaign if it's targeting people who already have the app. But if we're doing, for example, a conversion-based campaign, then in the ad set level, you can select whether you want to target people who have the app installed or don't have the app installed. So at that point, literally there's a tick button, and you can say yes or no. And for example, I might have some conversion campaigns which are also app install campaigns. So I want people to install and then convert, or I might have some campaigns which are targeting people who have perhaps signed up but not listened, or might have signed up but not purchased, or this kind of thing. And then I will tick people who have done a specific, who have the app installed already, and then I'll have built an audience list based on a specific action and then I'll target that audience base. Have I noticed any inconsistency in numbers lately on Facebook? I mean, Facebook's never hyper consistent anyway, so yes, but I'm always seeing inconsistencies. Sometimes we're having the best day ever, next day might be the worst day ever, and what you just have to do is be patient. I spent a lot of time being stressed at Facebook, and now what I've learned to do is just breathe and let it work itself out. And if you're seeing bad results for more than a week, then a quick hack is just pausing that campaign and duplicating it so that the numbers start again.